Archie Thompson, welcome along to Strive 365 podcast.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
Hey, for those that maybe haven't seen you on their screens, donning the victory blue for a number of years, they might have been living under a rock because you seem to be absolutely everywhere. So life after
Yeah.
football's been good. Why don't you fill us in on what you've been up to?
Well, I'm still heavily involved in football with working with Channel 10 and Paramount Plus with the A-Leagues, and also little things that pop up in terms of, other sporting events, Spring Carnival, the Formula One. And yeah, that's basically been my life for the last couple of years.
You glossed over MasterChef.
Oh, yes, the
Yeah,
MasterChef.
how did that?
Yeah. Unbelievable experience. And the cast or the group that I was with was just brilliant. So you had all walks of life, M4, world champion swimmer, actresses, actors, singers, uh, just just all these different dynamics, and it was just beautiful. I think some that had some experience cooking. I had none, but it was something about putting yourself out there. And look, to be honest, we probably had it a lot easier than what normal contestants have in that world, because they want to make a complete change and go into a different journey in food. We were just sort of there trying to keep ourselves above water and work and hopefully win some money for our charities. But amazing experience.
You mentioned walks of life. That's probably a good way to introduce how we got connected.
Yes.
Back through COVID times, we only allowed a little range from your house. We had an intersection which happened to be a park and a coffee shop. So we
Yes.
could cross paths quite regularly.
Yes.
Starting off, I said to my wife, "That's Archie Thompson." And she said, "Who's this guy wearing Melbourne victory shorts?" And then probably by the third time, we kind of struck up we got to have a connection here, have a
Yeah.
chat. So we did, and then we'd see each other at coffee quite a few times, and yeah, but probably my favourite Archie Thompson moment is a few years ago back at the Melbourne Cup. Had a few of my mates over from New Zealand, and we just walked in and just mind our own business, thousands of people around, and one of my mates hears this guy yelling out, "Gareth, Gareth," and I'm oblivious, and he grabs my attention. He goes, "Oh my God, that's Archie Thompson
Yeah.
calling out to Gareth Turnbull. What is
Yeah.
going on in this world?" So
Yeah. Yeah.
some good street credit from
Yeah.
so
Oh, well, it's just not. I think it's nice when you see a familiar face, especially in high energy place like the Melbourne Cup. It's always nice to kind of have that bit of grounding. And when I saw you, and when I see friends of mine, I like to say hello.
Before we get on to the nuts and bolts of this conversation, I can't let an opportunity slip past where it's Kiwis versus Aussies. So you were born in New Zealand, so can we claim you as a Kiwi?
Well, it's funny. There was an opportunity for me to play for the All Whites just when I was sort of coming through the old NSL, starting to play a lot of football. People were starting to wonder who this kid is, and then I had a meeting. I don't know who was the coach at the time, but I met up with him when I was in New Zealand, and they gave a spiel that we'd love you to play for the All Whites. And I don't know if Frank Farina at the time, the Australian coach, caught wind of that, and it was like, oh, maybe we should snap him up. And for me, it was at that time an easy choice, because with the Socceroos and the quality players there, the chances of maybe going to a World Cup were a lot bigger than what the chances were for the All Whites. Maybe if I go back in time, I would like to probably play for the All Whites, because I would have played probably more football and been a part of that amazing World Cup that they played in. But yeah, I missed the boat on that one, but had I guess a great career with Socceroos.
Yeah, you absolutely did, and we'll get to that shortly. So
Yeah.
let's bring it back now to you as the football player. So you obviously started off in the early days, the NSL, before it became the A League, and before you went off to Belgium to play. So maybe just if you can draw some comparisons or some similarities, because you see a lot of A League football. You're on the sidelines, you're a broadcaster. We see you around those games a lot. So you get to see that up close and personal. You speak to a lot of coaches and players. How has the game evolved here in Australia from back in the NSL day, or has it, you know, regressed potentially?
Well, I will say there was probably a lot more quality back in the NSL, purely to the fact too there was a lot more teams, and there was more opportunities back then because you could go trial at a club if you wanted to. I feel like it's a little bit harder these days to get yourself into an A-League club. So back then, like I just went for a trial. It was Gippsland Falcons at the time, and got a call out of the blue to have a trial, and it was Frank Arrock that gave me my first chance, and it wasn't your ordinary sort of trial. It was we had the football pitch here, but he wanted to have the trial on a gravel car park just outside the stadium, and it was probably about 10 of us. But I was so desperate because this was probably my last chance to maybe become a professional footballer, or it would have probably been a little bit of a wait and another little windy road to get back into the path. But I threw everything at it, and that's how I got my way into the NSL and signed my first professional contract. But so many talented players back then. I wondered if the professionalism of the A-League was back in the old NSL. We would have, I felt like, had a lot more talented players going overseas, or you know, our country in terms of being on the world stage would probably be a lot more advanced. But yeah, definitely a lot more quality.
And then you moved to Belgium. You had 3 or 4 seasons there, and then you come back to Melbourne Victory at the start of the A-League season. And you had a fantastic 11 years there. So here's some stats: 224 appearances, 90 goals. It's a fantastic conversion rate for strikers. 2 times Premier Plate winners, 3-time championships. So the championship being the grand final winner, 1 FFA Cup winner, 1 Joe Marsden winner, medal winner, 2007 grand final, 1 A-League Golden Boot, 2 Victory medal winners. So if I come back to the Joe Marsden medal winner, 2007, that's where you scored 5 goals in the grand final. How did that feel?
Wow, I mean, it was amazing at the time because I've had this conversation a lot of times. I think I was so strong on this thing that was going around, which was called The Secret, and it was about like manifesting, and pretty much if you put a lot of energy and focus into something that you really, really want, it comes to you. And I feel like I've got a really strong gift in that. And so I was leading into that grand final. I was just telling myself, I'm going to score a hat trick. I'm going to score a hat trick. And I even said it publicly that I was going to score a hat trick. And then all the moons and stars aligned on that day. And, you know, I scored 5 goals, which was pretty incredible. I think it was like 50, 60,000 people. I think it was the highest for a domestic grand final for football record. And yeah, it was just an amazing night. Everything just clicked. I was in the right place at the right time. I had some great players around me. Fred was just exceptional that year, and he set the majority of those up. And I would say that was probably one of the biggest highlights in my career. And I got to do it in front of a massive crowd and family and friends, which was pretty special.
Yeah, and the audience watching on TV. I remember where I was in Napier, working with Mainland Football. We had a national youth tournament, and the final was on. And all the coaches, I was a very young coach at the time, gathered around and saw this awesome thing unfold. And to think, you know, I was fortunate enough to not only work for Victory, but also get to see the man himself and to create a connection is quite special for me. So out of all those accolades and trophies and appearances and goals and experiences at Victory, is any stand out, you know, above the rest for you?
I mean, there's been so many great moments that I've been able to share with ex-teammates, people within the club, especially my family that were, you know, that always there through a lot of thick and thin. And you always hear a lot of athletes always acknowledge that, because it's so true. They get to see the best and the worst, mostly the worst, because we take a lot of that stuff home with us. And I was lucky that I had a pretty kind of supportive family. And my phone keeps sinking. I've got this cheap bloody stand and it keeps falling. But yeah, they were special. I don't know. Not. I don't feel like one kind of stands out. I feel like it's all economic. God, this thing. It is. Sorry, mate. I don't know why this thing is just hanging on by the finest of threads. Look at that. It's just now it's showing something it shouldn't.
Those shorts are amazing.
Oh yeah, mate. The pink shorts are my
Overall,
favourite. But yeah, look, I don't think any of them stand out. I feel like collectively it was just all my time there was fantastic.
Yeah.
Mm.
You were playing for the Socceroos as well at this time. So if we kind of just, bring that into the conversation a bit. So it was around the middle of, or start of your victory career. The World Cup preparation 2006, 2007 is coming around the corner. Guus Hiddink, all right, Socceroos coach, he obviously likes you. You're in the frame. That's the nature of the A-League season. There's a period of off season which doesn't coincide necessarily with Europe football and European football. And he sets something up for you to go to a massive club in Europe, PSV Eindhoven. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, wow, it was amazing. I like you said, preparation for a World Cup. Being in the A-League, it was such a short season, so we had months and months of I guess time that I wouldn't be playing football and only just training. And Hiddink really liked me. I mean, he liked the way that I played. He thought that I could maybe do something at his club as well, because they were a bit short on strikers at the time. A few players were injured, and the idea was for me, okay, to have game prep, but also to be playing regular football. At one of the biggest clubs in Holland. Yeah, it was like a big club for me, and I wanted. My idea was, okay, I'm going to go there, work really hard, prep for the World Cup, but I wanted to do well at the club, and there was a potential to sign on for further years, and really, I guess add to the bank account would have been nice too. Play at a massive club, playing Champions League most years, winning cups. So that was my idea too. And going there I had already had a taste of Europe for 4 years in Belgium, but this was obviously a different level. So I was probably a bit naive when I went there, thinking that I could go with the same mentality as I did here at Victory, where I could just go there and things will just happen for me. But it's not like that. You got some of the world-class players. I think I was there with Reisinger, Koku, Banagora Hasley, Affalay. These were just massive players. And, I held my own there, but I probably didn't do things professionally off the pitch. and that probably hampered me a little bit in playing games over there. But a great experience, a real learning experience. And I did win a championship. I sat on the bench in a Champions League game against Lyon. I think it was round of 16 or quarterfinals. So those are memories I'll take with me too.
You mentioned that the mentality was different in the players, and professionalism is a word used as well. Can you dig a little bit deeper into that? What were they doing? The players that you named, the Dutch mentality maybe that was different to to a younger kid coming out of Australia.
I just think the facilities, the setup, the recovery, the energy, and the quality. The quality was just at a different level, because you had Koku was like the ex Netherlands captain, played at Barcelona. So there's just these aura around these players too, and they just expected a certain level of, I guess, quality during training sessions, during a game. They didn't like sloppiness. Every time you went out to the training pitch, there was an expectation of how the session should be going. And Hiddink also had it too. Like he drove a lot of those sessions to be tough and hard, and he drove a lot of those sessions to be tough and hard and physical, and most training sessions were like playing a game. It was really really tough, and also too there's a lot of people outside, fans going, okay, where did this Aussie boy come from? Like, what sort of experiences he's got, and he's come into a massive club. So you start to question your own ability and have this doubt: am I good enough to be here? So that was always in the back of my mind every time I stepped out onto the pitch. If I had my time again, I'd probably do that a little bit better. Just to go in there and maybe take of what I did here at Melbourne Victory, where I just played with this freedom and enjoyment, and instead of going there and it's like, oh, I don't want to do anything wrong, and I'll probably do that a little bit differently. But it's just a different mindset, because they've grown up in that sort of environment. A lot of those quality players in Europe, especially in Holland, is that they grew up in it. I did grow up, and I was a bit late to the show in terms of coming to the NSL, and that was kind of semi-pro. So bang, all of a sudden here you go, but amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah, huge jump, but the initial idea behind it, apart from developing yourself, was to help prepare for the Socceroos. So just briefly around your Socceroos career, which is impressive in itself. 54 total caps, 28 goals, half of which came in one game. We'll get there in a second. But two Confederation Cups, 2001, 2005, FIFA World Cup 2006 in Germany, the 2007 Asian Cup, 2008 Olympic Games. So you've played in some big tournaments. Any of those special ones stand out?
Well, the World Cup qualifiers were actually something that really stood out for me, because I always sort of relate to how iconic the moment is in terms of sport, because you remember where you are. And I remembered that time where Kathy Ferryman ran the 400 at the 2000 Olympic Games. You knew where you were when you were watching that thing. That was kind of the feel about being part of that two qualifying games against Uruguay, the impact it had on our sport, but also for me too, because a lot of the players that were part of that squad weren't necessarily in the mix. But I think when Hiddink came in, he was like, I don't care who you are, what your name is, if you can do a job for me, you're playing. And that just gave us kind of, the ones that were on the fridge or weren't looking to play, a bit of hope. And funny enough, I played the first game in Uruguay, started that one, wasn't expecting it, come to the team talk, see my name in the starting 11, and you could probably, I could feel that maybe a lot of my teammates were going, oh, okay, what's behind that selection? But, to be a part of that was just incredible. And the game in Sydney, where we rode our luck a lot of times and go to a penny shootout, and we're going to a World Cup. And it's still talked about to this day. Like, it happened a long time ago, but I don't think any qualification for a World Cup for the Socceroos will have that much impact as what that one did. And that was just amazing. I think that was probably the biggest highlight for me as a Socceroo. But then in saying, no, I love just being a part of the team and being part of that brotherhood, because that's what it pretty much was. It was like we had that time away from our leagues. We got to sort of catch up as what's going on with them on a personal level, what we see, because we're just sort of seeing them on TV, a lot of the soccer teammates. But and then when it got time to play the game, we were down to business. But then there was nothing like putting on an Aussie shirt and representing your country, and having fans that hate you one week because you're playing against their team, and then all of a sudden you're united, and you have that support. And for me, representing Australia was probably the pinnacle of my football career.
Yeah, you can hear it in your voice and see.
Oh, it's really passionate, because only really a handful of people get the opportunity. You could be a professional footballer, but only a real select bunch can say and say that they're a Socceroo. And when you start to have 20, 30, over 50 games, then you can say, wow, like man, I was a Socceroo.
Yeah, you spoke about, you remember that we were in that moment in time and around the World Cup qualifiers. I spoke with Ricky Herbert in an earlier episode around, the Bahrain game, and for me, that was my most enjoyable live sporting moment of my life. I
Yeah,
remember it
yeah,
so clearly, and just the joy it brings to the whole nation, right? And speaking with a lot of people here in Australia around that particular moment, that World Cup shootout in Sydney, and just that moment in time, and it just creates a whole new generation of fans as well to the game.
yeah. It was amazing, and then then when you sort of go on your football journey, you have some of the younger guys that are coming through that were there at that game, and that kind of spark their love for wanting to maybe be a Socceroo or be a professional footballer, and then all of a sudden they're playing with you and they ask you about it, and they're pretty special moments too.
Before you got to the Uruguay game, you had to go through the mighty Oceania Federation, and one of these games you beat up on poor American Samoa, where you scored a world record, still stands today, 13 international goals in the game.
Yeah, yeah.
The movie Next Goal Wins, or documentary movie, was based around that as a starting point. Have you seen the doco?
Yeah, I have. It was a bit of the actual doco or the movie.
Oh, both.
Well, I haven't seen the doco. I've seen little snippets of it, and I thought that was really cool. But the movie was a bit more of a comedy feel to it. I was a bit dirty. I didn't get much, too much time in the movie. But look, it was a game that I'll kind of forget. People don't forget. It's a trivia question still, and I don't know if that record will ever be broken. And not many people can say they're part of the Guinness Book of Records, and I'm pretty lucky to have that in like a sport that has so many superstars and that have huge accolades in breaking records. So I'm kind of part of an elite group, I would say.
Hey, excuse me. The movie creators probably couldn't find any time in your busy schedule, so
Yeah, well, that's
I
probably right,
appreciate
mate.
you covering
I
off.
would have scrapped my schedule just to be in that.
I guess the main purpose of getting you on is to sort of tease out some learnings from, we'll just sort of walk through a bit of mapped out your journey. So some failures, some successes, things that you do differently for athletes, parents of these particular athletes, and coaches working with athletes that are in this like pre-performance phase. So not professional, not high performance. It's a really difficult space because athletes, if you take the football analogy, like youth team athletes, for example, they're having to live and operate like a fully paid for professional player in terms of all the work they do, but they don't get the trappings around the prestige and the money, and it's a grind. And just working with athletes in this space have a really important job to help transition to ultimately help them achieve their goals. So yeah, I just wanted to, use your wealth of experience, playing in top leagues in Europe, playing for Socceroos, playing in big tournaments, and a long career as a professional athlete, right? So, let's start off, going back a little bit when you were a young pup and you play with some older heads, Jeff Hopkins, who's, our A-League women's head coach. You played alongside him, got a big career in England, a number of other, senior players. What did you learn? What did you take away? What can you share around being the young guy in a more senior environment?
Well, what I talked about, how I went to Gippsland, had my first trial with an NSL club, got my contract. I just wanted it so badly that I went through what I did to get it, and I didn't want to lose. So, and I just wanted to keep getting better. And I didn't know where the journey was going to take me. I was just happy to be a part of Gippsland. Wasn't thinking of being part of any other club. Just wanting to play football. And in terms of NSL, Gippsland Falcons were a pretty right down the bottom in terms of quality. Some great players, like some great individuals, and but probably to compete with some of the big boys, we weren't really up to scratch, and that was down to the professionalism, people travelling from Melbourne. Maybe some were seeing this as kind of a side hustle, but I really just wanted to do the best that I can when I got the opportunity. And so I was eager to learn. That was easy for me because I already had the talent. And it's funny when you're a young kid coming into that sort of environment. Um, some of the senior heads, they notice the quality and they notice the talent, so they're there to nurture it. Like they're always there to kind of give a little bit of guidance. Probably didn't have like a great deal of guidance when it came to the boys with Gippsland Falcons, because there was maybe a handful, not even that had played at a really great level. But they just sort of took me under their wings in terms of like, helping me get to places, or having me staying at their house, or if there was little things to do extra. So that was for me important, because I kind of I was a young kid, 17 at the time. First time away from family. That's what I needed. I needed that kind of help, because for me football was it was in my blood. It was easy. Football was easy for me. I guess when I started to progress and play for bigger clubs with better players, that's when I started to, okay, well, maybe I need to learn how to finish a little bit better. So and I had one of the old heads that would sort of run me through little sessions that I should be doing after training. So that's how I kind of developed in that sense. But early on for me, it was just having that nurturing kind of environment. I got a lot of that at Gippsland, and that helped me. And then it was all about, okay, how can I get better? Ask the question to the guys that have made it. And so that's how I did. I kept learning and kept evolving, and that's kind of how I started my career.
Yeah, I see it a lot in environments that I work with, new people to an environment, they're scrambling, they're trying to find their place within, right? And too often they kind of attach themselves to the wrong people, the wrong type of leaders.
Yeah. Well, I would have to agree with that, because sometimes you just want to feel part of the group. Like, so it doesn't matter where you start, and then you'll find your way, and you'll start to see, okay, if I want to be more professional, I need to start to maybe see what this guy does, and so you're sort of kind of all over the place, trying to find your way. Where can I improve? Okay, he's going to help me improve in this. He's going to help me improve in that. Danny Allsop was someone that helped me improve in terms of my work ethic, and to every time I stepped down to the pitch, I was going to I had to be like, I give everything, because early on I was probably someone that would just really rely a lot on my football ability, and when it came to that working hard, it was that was sort of second nature. Like when you're a big fish in a small pond, which I was at Victory, it was like I probably skirted a lot of things, and that was down to my ego. But once I sort of put that aside and put the hard work in, that's kind of where my game really took to another level. Sorry, I jumped all over the place because things popped into my head. But yeah, you got to find your niche. You got to find some players that will, get the best out of you. You're a product of your environment also too. If you're hanging out with the people that are not doing the right things, it's easy to fall into that trap, which I have a lot of times in my life.
Yeah, I don't think we're not all perfect. We're not broken.
No, definitely not.
We're gonna, struggle and get things wrong at times. So obviously playing abroad, you would have been maybe not the young one, but again, new environment, knowing that, or seeing for yourself that the professionalism is on a way different level. How did you actively go and make and forge those connections with these big guns, Koku, and everybody else? Like, actively, what did you go through?
Oh, well, look, that was probably a little bit different, because those sort of guys kept to themselves pretty much. So I would just kind of fight it. I was lucky enough to have like a Nathan Coe, who was a goalkeeper at the time, and Jason Kalina, who was part of that Socceroos squad too. Well, established in PSV. So for me, having them guys around was great, and that made it a lot easier for me. But I tell you, my first time when I went to Belgium, my first experience of being overseas, it was a lot different than what I had encountered being here in the NSL. You're a foreigner, so they expect a lot more from you. You're not a local, so things probably are not handed to you as what maybe a local based player is. So the expectation was for me to go there and score goals straight away, and that's what fans and my coach expected. It didn't happen like that, so I had to learn a little bit differently. And the mindset that I had here in Australia, because like I said, it was not at that sort of mentality of like, okay, you go to training, you play, you have fun, and you leave, you have fun. That's not what it is overseas. You got to turn up every single training session, work, cut your socks off, and then you've always got someone wanting your spot that's come from overseas. There's always trialists coming in. So there's so many different dynamics over there, and it took me a little while to get it. And once I did, it was good. But you always test it every week, because it doesn't matter. Like if you have 1 week that's great, and the next week that's not so great, they let you know about it.
So athletes from New Zealand, maybe more so than Australia, because there's more opportunities from a professional career perspective here. But same for young kids here and all around the world. They quite often go abroad to try to reach those next levels. What advice have you got to them? Player lands in country X, sport Y. You've got, maybe you're on trial, 2-week trial or less. How can they make the most of that opportunity to make the impact in order to earn the contract, or to feel connected, or whatever that may be?
I feel it's that you do everything that's asked of you, and to try and stand out. Like I know that there's this fear of maybe I don't want to show too much, or I want to try to fit in with the group, but you've got to express yourself as much as you can. You've got to demand the ball, and if you've got to show that aggression. You've got to show that you really, really want to be there. And it can be daunting, because you don't want to step out of line and maybe tell off a senior player that's been around the game long enough. But you still want to have that, add that something that will go. The coach will go, I like what he's got. It might necessarily be down to skill wise, but they definitely see that aggression and the mentality of wanting to be a winner. And I think that's important. And it's tough. It's a tough gig. I know that a lot of young players from Australia go over to overseas, and within sort of 6 months or a year, they're back. And it's hard. It's a hard gig to go over and try to have a career. It is. And I can understand when you're over there, you're frozen out, you're not playing in that starting 11. Sometimes you're not even in the squad, and you're leaving Australia, where you pretty much guaranteed football. You're in your own environment. It feels a lot safer. You know what you're going to get, and I can understand that appeal to come back, because it's not an easy gig. And so I just feel like if you're a young boy and you're going over there, just give the best that you can. And sometimes it might not happen at that time. So you come back, you work even harder, give the opportunity to go over again. But sometimes it just might not even work out, and that's just football. That 1% of the 1% of 1% have a great career.
What's your take on? Let's use football as our context, so we can talk to a player who's playing reasonably regularly, let's say in the A-League, versus trying the next stage up, which is somewhere in Europe, and maybe they go there for a couple of years, not play as regularly, versus them staying here, playing more regularly, and then going at a maybe more mature age, versus going at that, at the earlier age, or taking the first opportunity that comes along. What's your sense as a player who's kind of seen both sides of it?
Well, look, man, there's so many different scenarios that could happen in that situation. Like you could say that, he's not quite played enough football, I don't think, or developed enough to go over. So he might be a little bit underdone in terms of really having that good match fitness against men. But then you could go over there and develop fantastically and then be straight in there. But these are just all these things. Or you can, decide to stay a little bit, then that opportunity to go overseas is gone, and you don't know when that's ever going to come back again. So it's a really hard one because damned if you do, damned if you don't. I just feel like if you get the chance and you're a young guy, do it. Go over. You never know what's going to happen. You might fail, you might come back, but like I said, if you don't give it a go, you never know.
Yeah, what's the worst, right? You just come back and you're in a...
Mate, you come back, you work a little bit harder, you develop on the things that you maybe lacked over there. Always ask for feedback in terms of that's probably something that I wish I had done maybe at PSV. That was like, okay, why aren't I playing? Like, what's the feedback that I need to do to improve? I didn't do that. Probably didn't do that my time over in Europe. I just feel like if you go over there, you don't get the outcome that you want. Ask what I need to work on, come back and do those things that you need to work on. And I think to get the feedback and to work on the feedback is important.
Yeah, every experience is important, right? Accumulation of different experiences make it up. And as a coach and even a leader of a program or an academy, I see my role as micro dosing different positive and negative and challenging and rewarding and complex situations and experiences to help develop all the players under our guide. Growth. So that the accumulation of positive and negative and overseas and being the young one and being the old one, I think they're all help make up who we are as an athlete.
Yes.
What about if we talk about now kind of the national environment? So how different is it walking into a national team environment, senior national team environment, talking about now maybe for the first time, or maybe you've had a couple of camps and you're still trying to establish yourself as a regular squad member within chosen sport we're talking about. How is it the same processes and mentality applied, or is it a little bit different because it's your national team, that your country that you're representing, rather than just one club of many?
Yeah, well, look, I feel when I started my national career, there were some big profiles in that team, and very old school mentality. They always make you feel welcome. They definitely make you feel welcome. But there is that little bit of I don't want this kid to take my spot. Like, so they might kind of, it's a lot probably different to what it is now. I feel like players that come and it's very much more a nurturing environment. They try to make you feel as welcome as you can possibly be. My time was difficult because, like I said, you had a lot of big egos, and it was a tough gig. But I feel like now it's a little bit different. Just go in there, work as hard as you can, try to just be a part of it. Yeah, just really be a part of it. It's because you're there and you deserve to be there because you're good enough to be there. I think that's the mentality, because sometimes we come into environments and then you have a few sessions, or you start to just kind of see who's around, and you start comparing yourself to everyone else. You start the fear or the doubt comes in. Do I deserve to be here? Am I good enough? I still have those moments when I rock up into Spring Carnival or doing a Formula One. It's like, oh man, am I going to do a good enough job here? Like, there's so many other players that are better, or so many more, I guess, media profiles that are better than me. And I feel like that you just got to try and lessen that noise or chatter in your head, and just do the best that you can. And national teams are fantastic now because that you're made to feel welcome.
It's such an important to think, not even think, but to remember, I guess, to embrace everything that goes on. There's some awesome stuff. You get to play in big tournaments, you get to experience the world, but things that grind on you, right? The travel. Not everyone loves travel. It's in and out hotel room. It's time zone differences. It's a whole raft of things. Not getting selected sometimes. Like, I think enjoy every time you get called up to represent your country, because it doesn't last forever, and it's a shorter career than a professional career, right?
Yeah, 100%. And there was so many times when I was so disappointed that when a Socceroos squad was being announced, that I wasn't a part of it, because mostly they'd use the European-based players, and so that used to be always a big disappointment for me, because there was nothing like representing your country, and especially too when you're playing decent football and you feel like you should be a part of it, or at least in the squad, and that doesn't happen. So it does chip away at you at times, and you're going to have those feelings of disappointment, but that's life, really.
It's life, and it's thing that I try and help our athletes to go. Like, the one thing you have no impact over, no control over, is actually selections or not. Like, it's coach's decision through work ethic, through performances. But at the end of the day, the coach says you're not in the team sheet, or you're not in the squad, or you are. That's his or her decision. So it's moving on to now onto the, those decision makers, those coaches throughout your career. You've had some big ones, right? Guus Hiddink, Ernie, who was at Victory, and as well as the Wellington Phoenix and Newcastle Jets, now part of Football Australia. Ange Postecoglou, he's now EPL with Spurs. Kevin Muscat, had a good career at Victory, and then moved on to Belgium and Japan, now in China. So there's some big names, some big egos, and some personalities, probably half a dozen others that you can name as well. Like, is there something that ties all those names together with similarities about what made them so successful, or they're all very different in their approach?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're all different. Every manager's different. I feel like with Hiddink, he just had a real knack of being able to know what the player is feeling, or what he needs. With also having such an amazing knowledge of the game. So he combined those really well. So he just knew how to get the best out of players. Or I think Ernie Merrick was someone that was about having kind of a real family, nurturing kind of environment. And if you had something important on, that you were able to do that. I think for him, it was like a real family came first approach, which I really loved and enjoyed. Plus, also too, his kind of his knowledge of the game, being a part of kind of developing players too. He was great at. Muskie was someone that was like really a kind of a leader in the way that he coached, because he kind of, his playing style was really tough, and being a leader on the pitch, he pretty much did the same as what he did in that managerial role, and his knowledge of the game's unbelievable. But he just knows how to really drive a team, and just someone that's quite quiet in the way that he approaches games, but very, very meticulous on the way that how he wants to play type of style of football. We've heard it many times. It's like, if plan A doesn't work, plan B is to do plan A better. Hard when you're a player, because when you just keep banging yourself up against the wall in terms of this isn't working, but it's like, no, you just got to keep doing it. And that when he decided to change the way he wanted to play, in terms of where he started at Brisbane Roar, and when he came to Melbourne Victory, about just, this is how we're going to get the ball, bap, 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 bap. That's how we score. So he was very much in the way of that approach. So I've learned so much over my time about each coach and how they got the best out of me. And they were all you just learn. You learn. I think if you have, I guess, wanting to be a coach, start looking at how at a young age, and you don't really think about if you're going to be a coach at a young age, because all you do is think about playing football. But if you love the game so much and you feel like there's something, really take notice about how certain managers coach and how they get the best out of players. Because if you've got a range of all these different attributes, it helps. It really helps.
Yeah, and I think you talk about a toolbox, right? You know, the tool I need to
Yes.
Archie might be different than the tool I need to use on Danny Allsop. Same position,
Yes.
different people before,
Yeah.
right? If
Yeah.
you're speaking to
100%.
coaches, either young coaches like a younger version of or even myself now, still working with this transition phase, or coaches who are older but working with these athletes, what sort of advice, things to avoid doing potentially as much as do more of this, that as best as you possibly can. What sort of advice, speaking to those people, would you provide?
Yeah, well, like you say, it's about one shoe doesn't fit all. Like, the way that you maybe speak to one player is not necessarily the way you're going to speak to another player. And I feel like it's like you say, it's you've got to have the learnings and make the player learn instead of telling him what he should be doing better, why he should be doing things a little bit differently, and always the positivity is key for me. I feel like, I mean, you don't want to if someone's doing something continuously wrong, you don't want to keep praising them. But like, I feel like it's such a big thing. I always got the best out of myself when I was given positive feedback. Always positive outweighs the negative, I feel. And that's, I feel if you keep giving that positive message, I think you'll always get the best out of your player. Always.
Yeah, I don't know many players that don't like being told they did something.
No, and it's hard. I mean, I still find it hard nowadays when I maybe someone says something about the way that I should have answered that, or it's always hard to take feedback. But I feel like if you can learn how to do, I don't want to say negative, but if you can learn how to give a negative feedback in a positive way, then you're already winning the race.
Yeah, brilliant. That's great advice. But you highlighted positivity a lot there, so no doubt, right? As a dad of two kids yourself, your parents and your support network around you going through this phase must have provided you with positive reinforcement and some positivity around the whole keep going mentality. But is there any other traits that they provided? Maybe some things that they didn't do as much as you would have liked. Just talk to us around your support network.
Yeah, well, look, my dad was one of those real silent dads, but he'll kind of let you know later on about like the sort of things that you should have done better, you should have done this, or you should have done that, and that's hard because I know, and the reason why I really got into football because of my dad's love of it, and also I was good at it at a young age, but it was my kind of connection to my dad because I wanted to. You always want to kind of your dad's your idol, so you want to try to impress him. You try to everything's for your dad. I thought that was my experience, and sometimes he was always tough, but that was his upbringing too. He probably didn't have that positive reinforcement. I try to as a parent now, and I don't get it right a lot of the times, but it's always to just keep encouraging them, keep just saying, do the best that you can. Always going to be there to support you. I think that's all a kid really ever wants, is just to know that a parent's got their back, and if you can, and it's hard to get, it's hard as a parent too, because you get mixed up in all the emotion of wanting your son or your daughter to really succeed, and sometimes that can maybe come out in a different way that the kid sees it. But I think if you're there and supporting and you're loving and you're caring, and that's the only advice I would give as a parent.
Yeah, trying to make my dad proud was, without knowing at the time, was probably my main driver. And
yes, that was my main driver. That's right. Proud. That's the word I was looking for. Proud.
Emotions coming out and potentially, not trying to, demean what goes on the sporting field, but But I actually banned my dad from attending games for a season because, in my opinion, he was over the top. He was stalking up and down the sideline, and told the referee a few times what he made a wrong decision here or there. And for me, it was uncomfortable for me. Now I can see he's doing it from a good place. He was a high level sportsman himself, high standards, wants to see performance, also wants the best for his son and ultimately team. But it just came across in a way that, didn't resonate with me at that point in my career. And he found other ways to share that enthusiasm. I don't know if there's any, moments like similar or different around that you experienced or you've caught yourself doing even as a dad.
Oh, well, yeah, I try to, because my son will let me know if I be too much, and I just want to try to be there and support them. I feel like if I had have had from my dad, and look, like I said, he wasn't capable of giving that kind of nurturing at the time. I would just kind of like, I think about my son. I'll just go, look, I'm proud of you. I love you I love you, and I'm proud of you. Whatever you do in this match, you're maybe going to not do so well, maybe you're going to do so. I don't care. I'm proud of you. Whatever you do, and I think as a kid, that's all I wanted to hear. So I know as a parent now, I try to say that as much as I can. And I think that's all you can really say to you, because as a young kid, you don't see it. You don't see what they're trying to do. I just think if you just keep reminding them of how proud you are of them, that's so important.
What other kind of roles do they fulfill when you're either abroad or playing, even when you've made it into a regular professional athlete? Like, what sort of support do they bring differently, or is it more of the same? Was it maybe a little bit less because you didn't need it as such?
I think when I was younger, I just the sacrifices they made. Like they went everywhere to try and get the best for me. So they would drive. I was living in Bathurst at the time. They were driving 3 hours to Sydney, 3 hours back, 3 times a week. Whenever there was a tournament, they would try to get me there. I come from a big family. My dad was just a Sparky. He always tried to give me the best, bought the best equipment. The sacrifices that they made were just incredible. And I only know now how much, because of having my own kids, of how much effort that takes. So I'm so grateful for that. And I feel like the kids need to, it doesn't matter how old you are, just to be grateful of what your parents do, because once you're in their shoes, you know what that's like. And I guess when I went into became a professional, it was like just knowing that they were there, I think was important for me. I just and they were just happy for me to succeed. They didn't never really try to say too much. My mum thinks she's some your wafer A badge license holder. She feels she knows the game in and out, and I switch off now. My dad is one of those real quiet ones. I wouldn't even know if he's at a game sometimes. I mean, I rocked up to Amy Park one game, and I think it was an important match, and I was driving into the stadium, and I had a look over, and I'm like, "My Dad." I bit the horn. I'm like, "Dad, what are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, I'm just trying to watch game, son." So he's someone that would just sit up in the top corner, like be proud and just watch, So that's the kind of level of support that I had, which was what I needed. It was brilliant. But I knew that if I needed it more, I could go to him.
That's awesome. And the point you make, I want to double down on, because people listening to here would be either athletes wanting to learn some advice, coaches around, the coaching side of things. And I think a big part that we miss is the conversation around how the parents can learn from people, athletes, ex-athletes like yourself, to be better and to double down on things that they're doing really well, but also for the athlete to listen back to a parent and go,
yeah,
okay, they might be aware of it, but do they really genuinely feel that what sacrifices they are providing? Probably not, is the reality. But again, over and over and over, we're hearing these sort of the rhetoric come through of sacrifice, the parents are always there. And I think, you highlighted, as a young athlete, just saying thanks to mum or dad or whoever your support network is can go a long, long way, more than you feel and at the time. So yeah, constantly, don't be afraid just to say thanks to mum or dad for driving or picking me up or a new pair of boots or sending me on that tournament, which they're not cheap, and they're obviously giving up other things in their world that to help you achieve the dreams that you're trying to achieve.
And I will say though, look, there are some parents out there that are just way over the top and are just not conscious. They're just not conscious, and and they must drive their kids like, my kid's this, and it's hard to speak to those parents because they don't know. But if you feel that you are one of those, and it's hard to say that you are, it's just, man, just taper off, let your kid, because your kid will lose interest, or unfortunately, it affects the environment around them. So it's a hard gig being a parent, especially when you want the best for your kid. It is hard.
Equally great advice. I think that news that comes through a fair bit around. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, you would see it a lot. You would see it a lot. Yeah.
Right, I'm just conscious of your hourly rate that you're getting. So we'll close it with some rapid fire questions. So start us off by posing a question for the week.
I've got to ask. I've got to
ask me in the audience a question for the week.
How can you show kindness?
Perfect. I like it. Give me a concept or an idea that sort of is resonating with you at the moment.
Progress, not perfection.
Can you recommend a book, movie, or a podcast for athletes, coaches, or parents to listen to or read?
Wow. I liked Steve Bartlett. I've read his book. I think it's CEO.
Diary of a CEO.
Diary of the CEO. I loved it. And he does great podcasts, and he did a podcast with Thierry Henry, and I just thought it was fantastic, and I got an insight into Thierry Henry, which I don't feel like I really knew the man, and he's incredible. That podcast is fantastic.
Yeah, excellent one. If you could wave around a magic wand and change one system, part of the system or process in your world, what would that be?
Oh, that is a good question. Can you ask it again? I want to get it right.
Get a magic wand, and you could wave to change one thing about whatever it is in your world. What would that be?
Oh. Man, that's a tough one. Probably less judgment.
Less judgment?
Yeah.
Give us one piece of advice that you were given as a young athlete.
Just do the best that you can. Do the best that you can.
What are you striving for in your life today?
Peace.
And leave us with a quote for the week.
Wait till the week. Man, I should have looked that run you gave me. I would have had something to.
What's your favourite quote?
And there's always something that pops up that always resonates. I have no idea, man. I just think there's so many amazing quotes out there. If there is a quote to be kind, I would sort of go along the lines of being kind to yourself and being kind to others.
Well, Archie, you have been incredibly kind with your time and your authenticity.
And this shaky dodginess with this camera too, mate.
Those bright highlighted pink shorts.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this, head along to YouTube and check out the video. You won't be disappointed. Hey, Archie, it's been incredible. Thank you very much for your time. It's always been a great little conversation when we bump into each other, and hopefully many more to come. I know the impact you would have made on players, athletes, and parents alike through this last hour will be found and heard. So, hey, I really appreciate that. And on behalf of everybody listening, cheers.
Cheers, brother.
Thanks so much for sticking through to the end of this episode. It would mean the world to us if you could hit the like or share button so we can get these amazing insights out to other like-minded coaches, athletes, and parents. Cheers.